Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a one-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
We tell the team every year, you got to have a great capacity for boredom because you're going to do the same thing over and over. And then I explain to them, it's not that you get bored, it's that you have a capacity for it. In other words, with every rep, you try to get better than you were on the last rep.
On this episode of Coach and Coordinator, I'm joined by the Godfather of the air raid offense, Hal Mumme. We get some updates from Hal and what he's been up to, including his work in the new International Football Alliance. We talk about the air raid and the evolution and how we see air raid popping up in more and more offenses. We talk practice, methodology, repetition, and developing programs. Be sure to stay tuned for our Winning Edge takeaways following the episode.
This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian makes the team collaboration software that powers enterprise businesses around the world, including over 80% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian's AI-powered software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, you'll have more time to do the work that matters. In fact, Atlassian customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
It's always good to sit down and talk ball with our guest today, Hal Mumme. Hal was one of the first coaches on when we first launched the podcast, which is just about 7 years ago now.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah, time flies. That was in December of 2016. I guess we're almost 8 years. So yeah, it seems like it's gone really fast. We've done over like 2,000 episodes. I know you've been on a number of times here with the different things we've done, the air raid clinics, the air raid certified. We've talked about virtual reality. We've talked about different aspects of how the offense is developed. We've told Mike Leach stories. So there's been all kinds of stuff we've shared here on the podcast. But it's always good to catch up with you and hear what you're doing these days. And I know you're involved in a new league. Would love to hear about that.
Yeah, we're International Football Alliance. We're going to kick off this summer on June the 7th. And we have franchises in San Antonio, Dallas, Chihuahua, Mexico, Baltimore, Tampa, Huntsville, Alabama, and the Ohio Valley, which is basically around Wheeling, West Virginia, and Pittsburgh. So excited about doing it. They're fun guys, much like I did in the Spring League in 21. These guys are fun to work with because they have no egos and they just want to get film and they want to be better ball players so they can make an NFL team. We're excited to do it. I'm the GM and the head coach in San Antonio of the Caballero.
With this league, I know some of the other ones who have started recently, they played all their games in one location. How's gameplay going to work for this new league?
We have great television. You're going to be able to get it on a lot of platforms in the U.S. Roku and Tubi, and right now Sports, Lights Out Sports. We just ranked a new one. I'm not sure of that one, but it added 55 million homes to our viewership. For the Spanish speakers, we have Azteca, and then we're on worldwide, we're on Sky Sports International. So we're going to be in about 1 billion households worldwide. We just got New Zealand and Australia, both countries signed up. So we're excited to do it. We are not like the leagues like the UFL right now. We are not going to be in a hub. We're at individual franchises and individual places, individual ownership of the franchises. It's set up more like the NFL, and we're going to play NFL rules and have a lot of wannabe NFL officials. So we're excited about doing it. I think it's going to be a good product. We are not going to do what most of those leagues do, which is overspend money and go broke after a couple of years. So we think of ourselves as like AA baseball. And our job is to sign these guys, let them play for a year or two, and then get to the next level, which hopefully is the NFL.
Got it. So with playing NFL rules, NFL markings, everything like that, you guys going to have a separate tick mark?
Yeah, like we're going to play it. We're most likely going to play it in Incarnate Word here in San Antonio. Some of the guys are playing at high school fields. Baltimore's going to play at Morgan State. So you just got to change the hash marks. It's not a big deal.
So let's take a look at this season, 2024 season, which we're coming to the end of for college football, at least regular season here, and high schools finishing up. A lot of ones around the country are into their state playoffs. I was actually watching a Minnesota State Championship just a little while ago here, streaming that, but a chance to watch a lot of football. And I know what's been neat over the years is to see even the concepts, the things that are just staple to you guys, that they're used all over the game now.
Yeah.
At every single level. This year, what was the one concept that we would say is air raid concept that you've seen being used more than any other? I know a couple of years for sure it was the mesh, as we went through that phase of everybody was trying to stop the RPO. And so the answer was, we're just going to cover down and play man on you. And of course, then mesh becomes really great against that kind of stuff. And so everybody had mesh in their playbook. What are the things you've seen this year you think have trended a little bit?
Well, I think it's still mesh, although I watch it all the time, and most of them don't know what they're doing in the NFL. Somebody tweeted out the other day that mesh is taking over the world. It was one of the former quarterbacks. I can't remember who now. But I think that's still very popular. And, of course, I think four verticals there's some new tweaks, so to speak, to four verticals because of the onset of the 5 deep coverage you're seeing out of everybody. They're rushing 3 and dropping 8 a lot. So the best way to attack that is to get him seams between those guys and try to occupy one of them and get him out of the way and then throw it to the other guy coming behind him. So there's a lot of versions of four verticals, I think, that are pretty creative and fun to watch.
Yeah, things obviously get repurposed, and when you say it's mesh and they're not running exactly the same way, I think people find ways to fit it into their playbook. I mean, if you want to run it the right way,
yeah,
you could run it against everything. And we studied it the one year we put it in. I honestly can't remember the source. This is back in like 2009, college level. We spent so much time on it. I'm sure we found air raid resources on it because we were running all the drills and we were running practice that way. And it didn't matter. We could call it, I remember we're playing John Carroll University. We called it like 6 times in a row straight down the field for a touchdown.
There you go. Yeah.
It is more than a man beater. That's for sure.
No, it is. No question. And if you learn how to settle them up in zone, it can be a devastating play. And you're right. I mean, Coach Leach and I used to talk, we're at Valdosta State. We used to say, if we got in the red zone, we just called mesh 4 times in a row and we'd score. And when we were disciplined enough to do that, it worked. Sometimes we were just stupid and didn't do it.
With four verticals, you mentioned you've seen some variations. What have you seen with that? Why are they doing it that way?
I think because of you're seeing this 5 DBs, 3 deep and 2 corners stuff, and then the 3-3 look in the box. And it poses a challenge because you got a lot of people drop it. Then they usually twist for the run game up front. And I think the thing to do, I see a lot of people doing, is go out of trips. And then instead of doing the over route by the inside receiver like you would normally do on a 6, we call it 6, or 6 call, they're doing some creative things, occupying guys and then getting that seam. Yeah, you can hit that seam guy behind him. And I think that's pretty creative. It's fun to watch. The other thing they're doing a lot of is they're on the outside, they'll fall out. If they get on top of them and they stay in a deep zone, they'll just fall out at about 15 to 18 yards.
Yeah, we used a ton of 4 verts probably. So when I was at Baldwin Wallace from about 2010 through 13, that was something same thing. We were calling that all the time. We would see a lot of fire zone stuff they're bringing 5. So it was great against that. But we would see, especially out of trips, we'd see a lot of the quarters coverage where, the safety on the other hash he's watching number 3 and picking him up. And we did a lot we truthfully didn't run a lot of straight forward verticals. We did a lot of switch releases. One was just, we were able to get guys open into space a little bit better with some of the limitations we had on our receivers. But also, we found we had a couple variations that really messed up where they were covering because how they wanted that other guy across.
Right.
You'd cross key that guy. So I think when you study it, think with anything. And I think when I think of air raid, I mean, you guys have the things you do over and over again. And we've talked about this before on the podcast where it is as much, not as just as much what you're doing as how you're doing. And that you guys get a lot of practice reps. I know, it's one of the most favorite practices I ever attended was when Mike started at Mississippi State. And I had never been to an air raid practice, but went out there and I was moving my daughter in, and Eric Mealy said, calling out to practice. And it was really fun to watch how organized they were and how they thought about getting reps, and that all reps. And this really went across their offense, defense, their special teams. They focused on, here's what we want to get out of this. And so instead of, you would think, air raid, these guys are running all over the place all the time. In team, yes. But individual periods, I mean, they're doing stuff in small spaces. I think they were working releases on the defensive side of the ball. They were working their man coverage, and there was no ball thrown. And they got so many reps because they weren't messing around with that part of it where they worried about getting the ball and catching the ball. And then they run a bunch of team, and Mike stops practice and MFs everybody, and then they get back to running some team, and then they go to individual again. I mean, it was very well orchestrated. And like I said, with everything you guys do, I mean, there's answers built into everything. Are there optimal calls versus certain defenses? I think there's things you prefer over the others, but I don't think you feel like, hey, we're going to get stuck in a bad play if we run this particular concept.
No, any of our concepts will adjust. When Mike and I were together at Grabowski State, I walked in his office one day and he got this phone call from the local high school coach. He had just heard about what we were doing. And he said, what's the best thing y'all do? And he thought Mike was going to give him like white coffee or something. But Mike said, the best thing we do is plan practice. And the second best thing we do is playing games. And I was a little disappointed. Yes, or Mike was right. I mean, you've always done a good job of that. And I originally got all that stuff from Bill Walsh back '80s when I was coaching in high school in Texas. And so we tried to be very efficient. And we tell the team every year, you got to have a great capacity for boredom because you're going to do the same thing over and over again. And then I explained to them, it's not that you get bored, it's that you have a capacity for it. In other words, with every rep, you try to get better than you were on the last year. But it's going to be the same thing over and over again. And basically every Monday's the same, every Tuesday's the same, every Wednesday's the same, every Thursday's the same. And then hopefully you can do it on game day. And it's so repetition is really important, and we rely a lot on that. And then I think as far as the concept that in our playbook, the 90s, like White Cross is 95 and White Shell is 94, Mesh is 92. We had the 90 series, and Mike and I never changed. A lot of people changed it because for the offensive line, it's the same call, but we called for vertical 6, as in go get 6. A lot of guys they renamed it 90 or 99 or something like that because the line sets here exactly the same. But the reason I always kept it 6 is because the 90 series is purely a progression series. You're going to go play side 1, 2, 3, each upper pocket, backside usually has for a flat and curl. So you could just get in this rhythm of having your eyes and your steps linked together. And as you go 1, 2, 3, your eyes are on number 1. As you hit that third step, if you're not throwing it, you're coming to number 2 and then number 3. So it's a purely progression beyond that. And in that respect, we don't care what the defense is. If you just go through your progression, you're going to find an open receiver. Well, the 6 call, I left it that because 6 is not necessarily a progression. It is a matchup. And so I always wanted the quarterbacks to understand the difference. It's the same steps. It's the same line protection, but it is truly the matchup. thing. So we can hand signal out to any receiver and change route. And so that's why it becomes a really handy tool. And Mike kind of made it famous when he beat Texas in 2007, or I guess that was, or whatever it was at Tech. And with Texas was the number one team in the nation, beat them in love with a famous throw to Crabtree on the last play. But on that drive, he called 5 out of 6 plays. And none of them looked the same.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay, things people love.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Yeah.
For the completions, not worth the same.
Yeah.
It's a handy deal to work on, and I think it's probably, if you just had mesh and 6, that you probably have a whole offense in today's game. And let the quarterback call the run.
Yeah. I'd agree with you. You said calling in your drives. Someone brought it up. I think I was talking to the coach from defensive coordinator from Linfield yesterday or the day before, and he was mentioning our game with Mount Union. I think it was around 2011, and we almost got him. We had the lead, and with like a minute 30 to go, we lost the lead and had to go back downfield. We just called straight down the field with our 4 verticals, and I just let the quarterback at that point, he was calling the variation he liked because we had different, we could switch the releases, but he went right down the field with it. We ended up on should have been a pass interference call on a 4th and 1 where we were running out of time. And I thought they were around the 30, we needed a touchdown. And I thought, well, I'm going to give it to him one more time. And my first thought was quarterback draw. The second was, just give it to him one more time. If he doesn't like it, he's going to go and he get the first down. So he took a look at things, like it didn't pull the trigger, starts releasing, and looks like draw, and he sees the tailback spotted up right there and flicks the, the guy got hammered. I mean, the ball was way out in front of him. He got hammered, and everybody was looking. All those officials weren't going to call that penalty.
And you were going to get a call there.
No, you were going to get a call there. But thinking of that ability to go out and do those same things again and again, and I think in looking at the developmental leagues over the decades, right, you haven't always seen clean brand of football from everybody, and guys trying to do some of the complex things they might have been doing, let's say at the college level or at the NFL. The air raid and the things you do really lend itself well to developing players because of the methodology.
Yeah. And it's for the quarterbacks, it carries over to the NFL. And of course, they get a lot more complicated, and they got long play calls, and they try to tell all 11 guys what to do on every play because apparently they don't get paid. So they have to explain to them. But in 21, we won the spring league, and everybody we coached against was either an ex-NFL head coach or coordinators. And we ran, you can ask Stan Bedwell or anybody that's on my staff, Dale's, Carlson, these guys. We literally ran the same play script 5 games in a row and never changed the order of the play. We even ran the trick play on the 5th play every game. Yeah. And scored all the first series almost every game. The other thing that we did, like I said, we didn't overwork the players. We came from behind, and I think 4 out of our last 5 games from 2 touchdowns down in the 4th quarter to win, and including on the championship game. And it was amazing to me how these guys loved it, because a lot of them had been in NFL camps, and they thought they were running into some complicated playbook they were going to have to memorize and keep holy and all that. And we didn't have a playbook. We just went out and rep things. You know, we had our typical 3-day install and the whole offense in, and we're able to rep it like 5 times in training camp before we ticked off, and then had a really great season with it. And we led the league in rushing, passing, and 3 of our receivers, one of them led the league in catches, one of them led the league in yards, and the third one led the league in touchdowns. So we put up pretty good stats and won the championship just doing this as simple as we could possibly make it.
Yeah, thinking about that and talking about development, I think those guys are one, because they aren't overwhelmed with a huge playbook of memorization.
Right.
They are able to develop their skills in a better way. Also, with obviously the way you guys emphasize those fundamentals. The plays work not just because you got the lines drawn up in a way that they can cover, albeit they work because people understand the play, but they also then understand the skills and the fundamentals and the techniques that they need to use to win their part of the play.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. In developmental leagues, you don't have a long training camp. And so one of the things I did was when he hired me to coach that team, I had 2 weeks to put a team together. I mean, he already had somebody else had taken the job and they had a roster, and then they pulled out. So he called me and I'd take the job at the last minute. I said, do I have to keep the people on the roster? And he goes, no, you can cut anybody you want and bring in anybody you want. So I went down. There's so many people running the air raid nowadays that nearly every player on our offensive unit had either run air raid in high school or college. And by doing that, when we had a 2-week training camp, by doing that, we didn't have to explain what we were doing to them. They'd already done most of it. And so it was a lot of fun to do. And I think the players were happy with it. We had 38-man roster. I think we got 18 or 19 in either the CFL or the NFL.
Yeah, those are pretty good stats.
Yeah. For that kind of league, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. With looking at that, I mean, we are at the time of the year now, as I mentioned, Filson High School playing, or most of the teams are in the clubhouse. A lot of guys stepping back and saying, what are we doing moving forward? And I'm sure this is a time for like air raid certified. I know it gets to be pretty big. We'll talk about some of the things you guys are doing here in a sec. But for the coaches out there considering what they do moving forward, and again, I've got to emphasize, like, there is more than just a playbook to it. There is the way you practice. You guys go into detail on air raid certified on how to do this. But for coaches thinking about switching to the air raid, one, what do you think is going to help them be successful in a switch like that? What's the difference you see between those teams who make that switch and are successful and the teams who make switch and struggle? What's those key factors?
Most of the teams that struggle it's a personnel issue. I mean, they're just outmanned. Their 5 can't block the other team's 4, things like that. I mean, sometimes, particularly in high school football, you're just stuck with the class you're stuck with. And there's either athletes in it or there's not. So, and you might be in a league where you're just outmanned every week. And so what you got to do is try to keep your players focused and try to win the ones you can win. And then just try to get better against the competition that outmans you. I had that a little bit in the SEC when I was at UK. In those days, it was Georgia, Tennessee, LSU, Alabama. And when you played those guys, they were a cut above everybody else here in the SEC when it came to defensive line personnel. That's probably the hardest part. I think we could get our receivers open against anybody. And even the best players in the league, like Champ Bailey was at Georgia when I was at the UK, and we usually wore him out. And so that was, I think sometimes it's just a personnel issue. Now, all things considered the same, everybody's equal. I don't think there's a better system you can run. And a lot of people get fooled by the name, air raid. A lot of, particularly defensive coaches, because they'll get a head job and they'll say, well, I don't want to be air raid. They just don't like the name. I mean, we run the ball about it. It was always amazing. Like I just said, in the spring league, we had the leading rusher in the league. And you had all these guys out there saying they're going to run the ball and pound the rock and all that nonsense. And we would run it about as effectively as everybody else. We didn't run it as much, but we did run it further. So that's what counts.
Right. I mean, you bring a good point up there with personnel. And I was just talking to our coach this morning. He's in the South. He just lost his job. I mean, he's been a state champion before, a really good coach, but he said, I was at a place where we could win, but it was really going to take going down into the youth programs and getting it changed there first and starting to build the skill because our guys just weren't good enough. Yeah. And I think some places you have to look at that now. Thinking about that, and your guys who have adopted this at the high school level, maybe as it exists, they got to eat some losses maybe a couple years because of their personnel. What were some of the things they did that made them successful in growing kids up through an air raid type of system? How much translates down to the younger levels? What is the focus maybe for the junior high kids or even guys who are like 5th or 6th grade?
Oh, I think it translates pretty well. When I was at Copper's Cove, I took over there and I said, we're going to be the best passing team in the state of Texas. We're not anything else. They'd won 10 games in 6 years when I got there. So they didn't have a real good percentage. And there was 3 schools in the league that they had never beaten in the history of playing. And we beat all 3 of them in 3 years. But I told the junior high coaches that you're going to run this system right here. I don't care if you win 8 games. I just want you to teach the system. And I want you to let everybody play, because at that age, you don't need to run them off at that age. Then they get to you as a 9th grader and they don't want to play football anymore. So I wanted it to be fun for that level. And I wanted them to learn how to throw and catch. And they did a good job of that. And they got it done. I used to tell them, I watch you. I can remember being at that age and we go in the backyard or the vacant lot and play football, and we could throw and catch on every play. And then we went to junior high and got involved in the program. When you did that, nobody could catch anymore. So what's that tell you? Yeah, just let them play. And so it worked out pretty well. And that's my best advice to all the high school guys that have control of their junior high program.
So you guys always put together some great resources. If coaches want to get started in this air raid certified, it has all the answers. We'll put a link to that one in the show notes, but I know you guys have something new coming out here on Black Friday.
Yeah, we do. And it's a air raid certified master's course, and it's the O-line. And I did it personally. Just like I did on the quarterback and receiver drills, I'll take you through every drill that we use. I take you here a few of the off-season drill that I think are important, like jumping rope and wall sits and things that we did specifically for our young O-line kids in the off-season. And yeah, I think it's AJ Smith produced it, and he always does a great job.
AJ gave us a link. I'll share that in the show notes. I know you have another event coming up here in January as well.
Yeah, we do. We'll have a Zoom meeting and get everybody together.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a hybrid event.
Yeah.
In Palm Springs.
I don't have the info on it exactly.
Yeah.
It's gross, and he'll get it out.
Yeah, it's in January. I know you'll be speaking virtually.
I think it's the 10th. I want to say it's around the 10th.
It is.
I've got another speaking engagement in Gatlinburg, Tennessee at the same time. That's why I'm going to have to do it by Zoom. Yeah. But it's around the 10th. Yeah.
Yeah, the 10th is the virtual. The 11th is in person, but that'll be recorded as well. So if you can't make it out there. And then I know there's some kind of golf outing on Sunday as well. So
yeah, well, we've got June Jones involved, so we're going to have a golf outing. So.
Yeah, June Jones, Nick Rolovich. I mean, it's run and shoot. So I know Craig Stutzman's going to be there, some of those guys. So AJ, obviously, as well. Another great lineup of guys who can teach you these systems. And again, I highly recommend checking out everything that Hal and AJ put together in Air Raid Certif. The O-line one coming out Black Friday. The link will be in the show notes for that. Hal, I always appreciate getting together with you, talking some ball. And as I tell you all the time, anytime you have something you want to talk about on the podcast, you're welcome.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll probably call you back here in the spring when we get towards training camp for the IFA. Everybody tune in and watch. If you're in the San Antonio area, it'd be fun. We got 4 fun home games, and 2 in June and 2 in July. So we'll get the word out on that, and everybody's welcome at training camp.
Awesome. Well, Hal, it was great as always, and we'll be talking again soon.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you.
Here's our winning edge takeaways from this episode with Hal Mumme. There's a couple things that really came to mind for me in thinking about what he had to say and how this applies to everybody in general, including non-air raid coaches. And I think as we see these concepts, which are very good concepts, pop up all over, whether that be the mesh or four verts or the over, Y/Y cross, or the Y cross types of routes, I think it still goes back to the why and the how. Everything has a why for how it fits in your system. We all see a lot of great plays, but we can't just have a collection of plays. We can't have a grab bag of offense. We need to have these things fit into what everybody calls a system, meaning that we run this because we run this. And these are how these two pieces fit together. And I think that's exactly what you've seen from the air raid offense guys as they've gone out there and been able to attack a lot of defenses with some routes that really work against anything, right? They stay in good calls because they don't have to scheme up their calls. They have the answers built in, and their players can execute all those answers because of the repetition and the way that they practice. I think the other thing that struck me was when we got into talking about developing programs. And so let's say you want to commit to an air raid offense. I think Hal made the point, like, you better have that quarterback right at the beginning. But I think also if you want this to continue to work, you have to have that pipeline of quarterbacks. You need to think about, how am I going to develop this at my younger levels so that as they come up, I'm going to have some people who can play that position, right? So I think all of it takes a lot of thought as a coach. You really have to see how you can dig down into those deeper levels, have an effect there. I think there's all kinds of ways to do it. My favorite episode is with Mike Elder, who right now is playing in the state semifinals in Ohio. They've been there a number of times. They've been there a number of times. They certainly have a shot at being the state champion this year, but Mike runs a K through 12 program, and he's essentially the CEO of it, sitting on top, and it's amazing how he's developed it. They've grown now to having two teams at every level, through their youth program. Actually has more than two teams, but middle school, 7th, 8th, 9th, and JV have two teams, and they all win. So it's a testament to what these guys are doing to put together a program, develop kids, and execute at a high level. And I think that's what you hear from Hal here, is that you are going to have to think about, how does this come all the way through, right? It's not going to be a one and done because, hey, we got a great air raid quarterback this year. What are you going to have for the guys behind? Because I think in any system, if it's, we're going to run this for 1 year and move on, that's probably not a good way of doing things, because essentially you're turning everybody back into a freshman learning something new. So continuity is important. Thinking about how you evolve and how you build your program is important. And those kinds of things always come through in my conversations with Coach Mumme. Be sure to check out the Black Friday deals from Coach Mumme and Air Raid Certified. They have the offensive line package that they put together that Hal mentioned in the episode. We'll link that in show notes. And I know they also have another one of their conventions coming up. It's a hybrid convention. There'll be an in-person aspect of it in California as well as a virtual aspect. You can sign up for that. In the link for that one will be in the show notes as well. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com and follow me on X at Coach K. Grabowski.